TCU wide receivers have a very complicated history, and unfortunately, it really scares people away in the scouting community. But this year, the Horned Frogs have not just one, but two guys who have some ridiculously high upside from the receiver position. We already have a video on Savionwilliams, a player who has some freakish athleticism and arguably the highest ceiling of any receiver in the draft class, but I think his teammate is the better all-around receiver and maybe the most slept-on receiving prospect in the draft class. Jack Bech came completely out of nowhere this year and was one of the most impactful players in the country at the position. And a deep wide receiver class, how high could he be taken in the 2025 NFL Draft? That is what we will be discussing in today's video. Prayers and condolences to the Bech family though before we continue this video, as Jack's brother Tiger unfortunately passed away in the terrorist attacks on New Year's Day in New Orleans, and prayers are to the family that is going through this difficult time. If you guys are new to the channel, we are doing NFL draft content just like this all the way to draft day, so consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon page, where for just $5 a month, you guys will be given exclusive access to my in-depth draft guide and big board with over 500 prospects and counting. It is some of the best work that I do, and I truly believe it is the best available draft guide on the market. If you enjoy my NFL draft content, I highly recommend checking it out. Leave a comment on this video and let me know which players you guys would like to see in the future. And without further ado, let's take a closer look at Jack Bech. Bech really burst onto the scene in 2024. He started his collegiate career at LSU, but decided to transfer to TCU in 2023. In his first year for the Horned Frogs, he finished with 12 receptions for 146 yards and 0 touchdowns. He really wasn't on anyone's radar, but his 2024 season was absolutely incredible. He had 62 receptions for 1,034 yards and 9 touchdowns, and has been a big-time riser throughout the college football season, and with a good Senior Bowl showing, could rise up draft boards even further. Bech is a very good route runner, and I was thoroughly impressed by his ability to separate. He breaks out of his routes well, he's got high football IQ, and he knows how to get open. It seemed like he was always able to create separation from DBs, and he has nuances to his routes that help him get open. He can stop and go on a dime, and he is really shifty out of his breaks, and those are tools that always translate well to the NFL level. I also love Bech's hands. It seemed like he caught everything that was thrown his way. He only had one drop in 2024, and he was a reliable threat all over. But it was actually the contested catches that I was most impressed by. He had 12 contested catches and caught 66.7% of his contested targets. He is a player who you can throw the ball up to and have full confidence that he is going to come down with the catch. Everything about Bech is gritty, and he plays a very physical brand of football, whether that be in his routes, as a pass catcher, or even after the catch. He was a physical player who did a great job of fighting through contact and gaining extra yards. I also loved how willing of a blocker he was. He had great blocking technique, and NFL teams absolutely love a receiver that is willing to do the dirty work in the blocking department, and you could argue Bech is one of the best blocking receivers in the entire draft class. He is a physical player who embraces contact. Bech has been awesome in 2024, but throughout the rest of his career, he hasn't really had much production. He had 4 touchdowns and around 800 yards in 3 seasons in college. The lack of consistent production is not something I'm super worried about, but it is going to be a talking point around Bech all draft season. The biggest concerns with Bech are going to come with his athleticism. His long speed was pretty average, and he didn't necessarily have burners to win deep down the field. As a route runner too, I don't think he had elite quickness. He doesn't have great burst off the line of scrimmage, and there are a lot of little things in his athletic profile that do concern me, but overall, I just didn't think he was the most explosive player in the world, and that could limit his overall ceiling at the NFL level. With that being said, Jack Bech is my favorite wide receiver in the class, and I think incredibly highly of him. He plays the position the way I like to see it played, with physicality, consistent hands, the ability to create separation, and I think he's a very, very good player who could develop into an elite NFL wide receiver in the right system. He's my number 8 receiver in the class because of the lack of great athleticism, but he's my number 49 overall player in the draft class, and I think he is one of the most slept on values at the receiver position. In terms of a scheme fit, I think Bech is likely going to be used as a wide receiver. I don't think he's athletic enough to be a number 1 X wide receiver right out the gates, but all of his little nuances and physicality I think do make him a player who could be an elite number 2 receiver in the NFL level with the upside to develop into a number 1. I know it's a lofty comparison, and I know people immediately start to discredit you when you start comparing it, but I can't help but see a lot of Puka Nacua when I watch Bech. He moves the same way, he is a willing and fantastic blocking receiver just like Puka. Neither are elite athletes, but have incredibly reliable hands, they're crafty after the catch, and I think Bech is this year's version of Puka Nacua. He's going to be a very similarly used wide receiver. He may not be as good, but I think he is going to be used as a similar type of weapon for an NFL team. Jack Bech is a big-time weapon. He can do a little bit of everything on the field, and while he's not the greatest or most explosive athlete in the world, I think he can and will be a very good player at the next level. I am a massive fan, and ultimately, I believe Jack Bech will be a top 100 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.